I've been watching WandaVision for the past week, and the love you two have is real.
How many of WandaVision's endless sitcom references and tropes have you caught? WandaVision is the first TV show to star Avengers. So it's appropriate that this television event isn't just full of MCU Easter eggs, it's also packed with homages to TV history, specifically family sitcoms from the 1950s all the way to present day.
A whole day. Just to myself.
That means I have one night to myself, which happens once every never.
Besides offering a fun game of spot the reference for TV fans, these allusions inform the story of Wanda coming to terms with her grief over Vision's death, which we witnessed in Avengers: Infinity War.
Not blipped, dead.
The Scarlet Witch has buried her feelings under layers of denial and illusion, retreating into the picture-perfect family life of a sitcom she's directing. With this conceit, WandaVision reminds us that TV has always been an illusion, a neatly packaged version of everyday life.
1+1 is family. WandaVision.
We're going through episode by episode to show you all the sitcom Easter eggs you might have missed and what they mean. But first, we're explaining the ending. Be ready for spoilers. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get notified about all our new videos. The theme of the finale is self-knowledge.
Power isn't your problem, it's knowledge.
All season, Wanda's been using her sitcom illusion to escape from the reality of her grief. But as the maxim goes, the only way out is through. By the end of the episode, Wanda stops fleeing what she feels and fully embraces who she is, the ultra-powerful Scarlet Witch. Her superhero name in the comics, but not how she's been referred to in the MCU thus far.
And that makes you the Scarlet Witch.
For the first time, we're seeing her fully decked out in her Scarlet Witch appearance and committed to total self-discovery.
I don't understand this power, but I will.
Vision likewise grapples with what really defines him as he faces off with his own reconstituted body, which S.W.O.R.D. reassembled and sent to kill him. S.W.O.R.D. Vision has none of Vision's memories, while Wanda's Vision has no true physical form because he was created by magic. So it's a bit like Vision's soul facing off against his body.
But I do not have the Mind Stone. And I do not have one single ounce of original material.
Ultimately, nothing defines Vision more than his ability to evolve.
I have been a voice with no body, a memory, made real who knows what I might be next.
Near the end, shortly before Wanda's Vision disappears with her hex, she clarifies that he's the part of Vision remaining in her.
You, Vision, are the piece of the Mind Stone that lives in me. But mostly you're my love.
And they leave the door open for another incarnation of his strange existence.
We have said goodbye before.
We'll say hello again.
Just as Vision confronts his doppelganger, Wanda fights her own kind of shadow in the form of Agatha Harkness, another witch from the comics.
They take power from the undeserving. It's kind of my thing.
Agatha tries to push Wanda into consciously becoming a villain like her by choosing to keep trapping the people of Westview.
Give me your power, and you, and your family, and the people of Westview can all live together in peace.
But what Wanda may lack in knowledge, she makes up for in being a quick learner.
In a given space, only the witch who cast them can use her magic. Thanks for the lesson.
In the end, she must choose between her personal happiness, saving the family that can only exist in this world, and doing the right thing, freeing the town's residents.
Save Westview or save your family.
In a way, this is also a clash between the family sitcom and the superhero genre, and between two of our most American values. Romance for the family unit versus an ideological commitment, at least in theory, to being the hero or the good guy.
Please, let us go.
Wanda ultimately understands that the person she truly is cannot terrorize an entire town just so her family can be happy. In other words, she's a hero.
I know you'll set everything right. Just not for us.
After Wanda lets go of Westview and her family, one post-credits scene sets up Monica Rambeau's next adventure, triggered by her own grief for her mother.
I was sent by an old friend of your mother's.
before a final post-credits scene shows Wanda's Scarlet Witch persona studying advanced magic from the very book Agatha told her about.
Did you know there's an entire chapter devoted to you in the Darkhold? That's the Book of the Damned.
We briefly hear her sons, suggesting that through her growing knowledge, Wanda may yet be able to bring back her family from some dimension where they still exist. Throughout the season, we've been presented with an idea of TV as primarily an escape.
Dick Van Dyke again? Always sitcom.
And a comforting illusion.
It is funny because of the grievous injury the man just suffered.
But the finale counters all that with the thesis that in life, as in good storytelling, we must always follow the truth. So now let's go back through the other episodes to catch all the fun sitcom influences you might have missed and how they were leading us to Wanda's self-knowledge all along.
But I don't need you to tell me who I am.
The first episode of WandaVision calls back to early television's 3-camera setup with its laugh track,
"Those boxes don't move themselves,"
and theatrical style with big gags.
Oh no, too much. Oh no, not enough.
It's an homage to the big physical comedy of 1950s and 60s comedies like I Love Lucy and The Dick Van Dyke Show. This episode recalls the warm, genuinely loving couples of this era to remind us just how pure Wanda's and Vision's love really was, which is why this is such a tragic loss for her.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
And they lived happily ever after.
It also sets up the theme of conformity and the drive to fit in, as the jokes revolve around Vision and Wanda trying to pass as normal enough to earn the seal of approval from his narrow-minded boss.
You know, I'm beginning to think you're not management material, Vision.
There's an enjoyable ridiculousness to the whole premise that a witch and an android could ever blend into suburban 1950s American life.
Don't forget.
I haven't.
Which gets at how perhaps it was impossible for anyone to truly live up to this era's sitcom ideal of normality. This episode's plot is especially stock. Stories about forgetting important dates and bosses showing up to an employee's house for dinner have been creaky sitcom standbys for basically the entire history of the form, from I Love Lucy to Bewitched to Family Matters.
You know what's wonderful about this present, Ricky? You didn't forget our anniversary.
So this choice underlines how in her grief, Wanda is reaching for a totally unreal ideal of what life should be like, looking for the comforts of being supposedly like everyone else.
The next time she's washing dishes, which by my count happens about once an episode, barf.
Near the end, when Vision's boss starts to choke, the camera style suddenly changes to briefly mimic the Twilight Zone.
Stop it. Stop it.
And this is one of our first clues that something's really off. Later, we see in a flashback that Wanda has planted the seed for this uncanny feeling with her favorite episode of The Dick Van Dyke Show, It May Look Like a Walnut, an episode where Rob Petrie dreams about an outlandish alien invasion that slowly turns the show from a sitcom into a sci-fi nightmare. Similarly, in the first WandaVision episode, already we're seeing Wanda's subconscious poking through in the toaster commercial from Stark Industries, which created the weapons that killed Wanda's parents.
The second shell hits, but it doesn't go off. And on the side of the shell, it's painted one word: Stark.
The beeping and blinking light of the Stark toaster even looks and sounds like the second Stark missile that threatened to go off. But Wanda's mind is urging her to
forget the past. This is your future.
And it makes sense that Wanda chooses her childhood favorite, The Dick Van Dyke Show, as one of her first sitcom inspirations because this is her attempt to return to the moment before her first loss, when her parents were still alive and she felt whole.
By the end of the episode, you realize it was all a bad dream.
Also, as some eagle-eyed comics fans pointed out, the important date that both Wanda and Vision forget, August 23rd, written as a European-style date, would be 238.
See, I forgot to tell you my wife is from Europe.
As it happens, Avengers number 238 is an issue about bringing Vision back after a severe injury. Moving into the 1960s, WandaVision's second episode goes full-on Bewitched, explicitly channeling that show about another closeted witch in its opening theme. As in Bewitched, visual comedy results from the couple's struggles to hide their supernatural differentness from the normals, while we get to delight in the couple's sweet relationship. But we're starting to see more complicated power dynamics develop between the sexes, as the wife uses both her magic and her wiles to take charge for her somewhat average husband.
Yeah, what she said.
As Paul Bettany put it, by Bewitched, you've got a man whose wife is incredibly powerful, and yet he's embarrassed by how powerful she is. In this episode, Wanda's taking some cues from more liberated characters on 60s sitcoms.
Say, those pants are peachy keen.
Do you really think so? The other ladies are in skirts. I was worried.
Though the first episode pays some homage to the more old-fashioned aspects of The Dick Van Dyke Show, the second dresses and styles Wanda to resemble Mary Tyler Moore's character on that show, Laura Petrie, who was the first major sitcom housewife to consistently wear pants instead of a dress. You might also notice the couple start out in separate twin beds a la I Love Lucy, but Wanda uses magic to put them together, echoing how by the mid-60s on sitcoms like Bewitched, it started to become more common for couples to share a bed on screen.
This is better, isn't it?
Wanda, darling,
Yes, dear.
get the light.
Meanwhile, this episode also echoes a darker example of control from a 60s relationship sitcom, I Dream of Jeannie, in which a millennia-old Jeannie's human love interest / captor, Tony, frequently locks her in her bottle.
It's a black pearl.
Yes, it's yours. It's yours. Here.
While Wanda herself has powers that rival Jeannie's, the dynamic feels like a gender-flipped I Dream of Jeannie. She's keeping Vision under her control and preventing him from leaving. Yet her subconscious is poking through even more in the second episode.
I am Glamour and he's Illusion.
We get another commercial that refers to Strucker and Hydra. Most saliently, the episode also borrows a device from the 1998 film Pleasantville by having small objects of color start to penetrate the black and white. In that film, a 1950s sitcom black and white world slowly transforms into color, representing how its inhabitants' lives are growing more vivid and rich due to learning more about true reality.
So what's it like?
It's louder. Scarier, I guess.
Sounds fantastic.
But when Wanda discovers moments of color, these are a hostile attack that frightens her, because they represent the outside, modern world trying to get in.
No.
Interestingly, the primary color Wanda sees in this episode is red, which is also the first color that appears in The Giver.
It's red.
That dystopian tale has parallels to WandaVision, as it's about a community without memory, and which no longer has biological family units, which is what Wanda is fixated on creating here.
Is this really happening?
Yes, my love. It's really happening.
The 1970s themed third episode, Now in Color, channels the vibe of the Brady Bunch, which is a big influence on the opening title sequence. And while the credits copy the title font of The Mary Tyler Moore Show, their tone is closer to the brightly colored, carefree feelings of shows like Happy Days and Mork and Mindy. Those two were themselves throwbacks. Happy Days, with its 20 years earlier setting in the supposedly more innocent 1950s, and Mork and Mindy with its Bewitched-esque premise of a fantastical being, the alien Mork, trying to disguise himself to fit into normal contemporary life with the help of a grounded human partner.
The more I think about it, I think that we better keep where you come from a secret. I hate to admit this, but people here on Earth get pretty hassled over anything they don't understand.
Paul Bettany has noted that in certain 70s sitcoms like The Brady Bunch, everyone's pretending there's nothing wrong in the world, despite massive social turbulence like the Vietnam War and conflicts for racial justice.
Greg, what's up? Anything wrong?
Oh no, everything's groovy.
And likewise, Wanda's denial is in full force here, as all she and Vision have to worry about in their fake TV show is the happy news that they're starting a family. Even their family has an overlay of TV fakeness. At one point, Vision is seen practicing diaper changing on a doll.
I think we have an understanding. Start the clock.
It's the exact same doll Cindy, the youngest Brady, carried around on the Brady Bunch.
Goodbye, baby.
We later find out Wanda retreated into this episode of fake domestic bliss after her own family life had been decimated, while Hydra exposed her to the Mind Stone.
She hasn't got any feelings. She's full of sawdust or rags or something.
Meanwhile, her desperate attempt to hide her rapidly progressing pregnancy from Monica pays homage to a classic sitcom trick. When a sitcom actress would get pregnant out of sync with her character, the show would often try to hide the baby bump for as long as possible using overcoats or other props to conceal it. At the same time, other parts of the episode challenged the fakeness of Wanda's perfect family life by taking after 70s shows that allowed more reality and conflict into the picture. Scenes between Wanda and her patronizing doctor add a Mary Tyler Moore Show-esque feminist edge, as Wanda asserts quite rightly that she knows more about what's going on in her own body than her hapless doctor does.
We let the little ladies keep tabs on their growing babies with fruit. Makes it simple for them.
Now in Color also plays on the cultural clashes of 70s sitcoms like All in the Family, where grumpy patriarch Archie Bunker butted heads with his more forward-thinking daughter Gloria and her husband Michael.
How can you be against gun control with all the assassinations?
I'm saying, maybe Governor Wallace wouldn't have got shot if he had a rod in his miss.
Here, the culture clash between Wanda and Geraldine becomes literal. Geraldine invites Wanda to see the wider world by referencing Ultron, the AI villain who caused the death of her twin brother Pietro. Wanda cannot accept this intrusion of fact into her sitcom fairy tale and casts Geraldine out. Episode 5 has fun with the over-the-top sentimentality of 1980s TV. This is signaled right away by its schmaltzy opening theme, which combines a riff on the opening shot of Family Ties, the dissolving family photos effect from Growing Pains, and shots lifted directly from Full House's intro sequence. In fact, there were multiple Full House references on Episode 5, almost like they were... There's the general layout of Wanda and Vision's new living room, while their cute young twins will inevitably remind viewers of star Elizabeth Olsen's older twin sisters, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who played Michelle Tanner on Full House from the time they were infants.
You got it, dude.
It just so happens that WandaVision's director, Matt Shakman, was also a kid actor on shows from this era, such as The Facts of Life and Just the 10 of Us, a spin-off of Growing Pains. Actor Paul Bettany describes the vibe of this episode as family ties and teachable moments. And fittingly, Episode 5 is referred to as On a Very Special Episode, a term often used to describe an episode on shows like Family Ties or Full House where the characters have to learn an important life lesson.
Uncle Jesse? Is it okay to cry?
You bet.
After the family dog, who we just met in this episode, passes away, 1980s Wanda has to help Tommy and Billy understand that we can't avoid the hard parts of life.
We can't reverse death, no matter how sad it makes us.
Of course, the irony of her words is that Wanda is orchestrating this whole fictional TV show precisely because she won't accept those rules of life. But in this episode, we're increasingly seeing Wanda failing to stop her awareness of what she's doing, breaking through the artifice. The commercial for Lagos paper towels with the blood-like juice on the mom's hands,
"For when you make a mess, you didn't mean to,"
is her subconscious reminding her of her mistakes in Lagos in Captain America: Civil War.
It's my fault.
And within her show, Vision is becoming aware of what she's doing. We're starting to see more disagreement entering their formerly perfect-seeming relationship.
All of this is for us, so let me handle it.
What is outside of Westview?
As Bettany said to TV Line, the increasing strain between Wanda and Vision also reflects the evolution of sitcom couples over the years. You start off with Dick Van Dyke, where there's real warmth to that relationship. But by the later eras, the couples aren't necessarily that fond of each other, and this will become even more pronounced as we move into the 90s and 2000s. WandaVision's 6th episode brings us up to the early aughts with an opening theme that riffs on bold single-camera sitcom Malcolm in the Middle. With Malcolm and the even more realistic Roseanne, which ran into the late 90s, family life on TV in this era was becoming less idealized and sentimental and more openly messy, chaotic, and conflict-ridden.
Only in our family can someone be a nutcase for 20 years without anyone noticing.
We noticed, Arlene, we're just ignoring you.
Likewise, Wanda is increasingly struggling to maintain control of her fantasy of family life and can't keep up the picture-perfect facade that felt easier in the earlier sitcom decades.
This is a respectable family. If I see any funny business, I am going to magic you into a pickled herring.
As the episode opens, the twins take the reins and explain things to the audience in the style of Malcolm.
Mom's been weird since Uncle Pietro got here.
Pietro is back, but recast as Evan Peters, the actor who played a similar role in Fox's separate X-Men universe, raising the possibility of multiverse crossover territory. In episode 8, we see that Wanda watched Malcolm in the Middle while grieving the actual Pietro's death. Despite its increasing realism, this show was still comforting to Wanda because it would never allow a main character to be seriously injured, much less killed.
No, he's not really injured.
Ah. How can you be certain?
It's not that kind of show.
So it's fitting that in her Malcolm in the Middle era fantasy, Wanda's brother comes back from the dead, except it turns out this is just a trick by Agatha to try to learn Wanda's true identity.
I got close with fake Pietro, if you will.
Within the episode, Pietro is an embodiment of the sitcom trope of the annoying brother-in-law or family member in general coming to stay.
Where should I put this bag?
By the door so you don't forget it when you leave.
As family, Pietro also represents reality intruding even more intimately, while his new face subtly reminds Wanda that Pietro is actually dead.
I know I look different.
Why do you look different?
And none of this is real.
Where were you hiding all these kids up till now?
What?
All New Halloween Spooktacular is a play on the rise of the Halloween special episode of the sitcom.
Hey, Sheldon. Hello.
But in WandaVision, Halloween represents a true thinning of the veil between the real world and the Westview reality, just as the holiday is supposed to be a night when the worlds of the living and the dead can commune. Wanda's Sokovian fortune teller costume is really her Scarlet Witch gear, and Vision's costume resembles his look in the comic The Vision and the Scarlet Witch. And Billy's telekinetic visions aren't just sitcom scary, they're full-on horrific.
They think he's dying.
And after Vision discovers the force field, it's not a comic misunderstanding or the material for a life lesson. It has the potential to really tear apart Wanda and Vision's family, even tear apart Wanda's version of Vision himself.
Don't sweat it, sis. It's not like your dead husband can die twice.
By the end of the episode, the sitcom conceit can't continue to hold back the tide of truth. Wanda has to visibly expand her force field and rewrite everything. In its 7th episode, WandaVision more or less catches up to the present day through its central homage, Modern Family, which ran from 2009 all the way up to 2020. Wanda talks to camera on a comfy-looking couch with fabric that echoes the Dumfries couch pillow, her performance a note-perfect imitation of Modern Family mom, Claire.
Look, we've all been there, right? Letting our fear and anger get the best of us.
If I say something that everybody else is thinking, does that make me a mean person? Or does it make me a brave person?
The mockumentary conceit, where characters talk to unseen filmmakers supposedly filming their lives, rose in popularity in the late 2000s and 2010s. And this episode's theme song echoes the most famous fake documentary sitcom, The Office. Meanwhile, the title sequence visuals are directly inspired by ABC's Happy Endings, which had episodes directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, who went on to helm Captain America the Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and Endgame.
Tell me what you feel.
I just feel you.
Modern Family or Arrested Development still include plenty of zany sitcom antics embellished with fun music.
Hey there, it's Big Daddy. I thought I'd try to call you before I surprised you.
So I'll just meet you there then.
But they're often filmed at more of a distance, with a messier camera, to create a sense of eavesdropping on reality. Vision and Darcy's Silly Business with Clowns, also a Modern Family standby, embody this underplayed style.
You're the new clown?
The episode's name, Breaking the Fourth Wall, refers not just to the confessional style, but also to how Wanda's illusion is breaking down.
Do you think maybe this is what you deserve?
What?
the art direction of her family home starts skipping through time periods. The title card, a riff on Modern Families, goes so far as to announce that this show is created by Wanda Maximoff. And this episode's commercial for Nexus, the name of the Earth's biggest internet hub in Oslo, which features an Avengers Age of Ultron, speaks directly to Wanda's need to address her depression by confronting reality.
A unique antidepressant that works to anchor you back to your reality, or the reality of your choice.
The episode starts out playing on Modern Family-esque family sitcom tropes like the overwhelmed mom desperate for some time to herself.
Hey boys, why don't we give your mom some me time?
Agnes, are you sure?
And bickering parents that no longer even bother to hide their tensions from the kids.
Do you want to go look for him?
Well, if he doesn't want to be here, there's nothing I can do about it.
But while she's trying to fit her feelings into the comfortable parameters of Modern Family's normality,
It's probably just a case of the Mondays. Am I right?
Wanda's losing her composure in front of her kids gets dark.
I'm starting to believe that everything is meaningless.
Modern Family didn't represent a major shift in sitcom style so much as an amalgam of many past sitcoms. It was both contemporary, with its blended families, a gay couple, and an adopted child, reflecting a modern understanding of the many forms family takes, and nostalgic, drawing on comforting traditional sitcom elements like cute kids, bumbling dads, super competent moms, and silly misunderstandings in a noticeably upper-middle-class environment.
Well, her mom can't get through soccer practice without a thermos of Chardonnay, and don't get me started on the dad.
So imitating Modern Family makes perfect sense for an episode where Wanda's world can't stick to a single clearly defined era. And it indicates that Wanda's just about out of runway for her tour of family sitcom idealism.
Okay, so maybe I went a little too dark there. But they'll be fine. Vision is made of vibranium. They literally inherited tough skin.
Just as Modern Family reached an endpoint for the family sitcom genre. While there will always be family sitcoms in some form, in today's ever more fragmented landscape, big hit family sitcoms will only continue to get rarer. Late in the episode, Vision refuses to be constrained by the sitcom contrivances keeping him from getting home and simply walks away from the confessional scene.
What am I doing here? Sitting, talking to you? When this is absurd. I need to get to my wife.
By the end, the fourth wall has broken down and it can't be repaired.
Who's been messing up everything? It's been Agatha all along.
The next episode, Previously On, doesn't resemble a sitcom at all. It looks and acts a lot more like the penultimate episode of a big sci-fi fantasy series like Lost or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, focusing on a big bad guy, offering big revelations in the form of flashbacks from Wanda's past, and setting up a big conflict for the finale.
You have no idea how dangerous you are.
Agatha demands a history lesson to understand how Wanda got so powerful, and flashbacks reveal how Wanda escaped into all these sitcoms for comfort in painful moments in her life, which also increased her power. So we see how Wanda's powers and her grief have fed into each other.
It's just like this wave washing over me again and again.
Wanda's love of TV is founded in a desire to erase or hide serious depression underneath a cheerier exterior layer of fun shenanigans that, by definition, always turn out okay in the end.
Shenanigan is like problem, but more silly than scary.
Likewise, each of the show's sitcom eras portrays not the reality, but the ideals of its time. Whether that's wholesome 50s conformity, a little bit of 60s magic behind closed doors, maintaining a fun, easy-going air while trying to have it all in the 70s, or nurturing an unruly brood of kids with a combination of sentimental life lessons and zany antics in the 80s and 90s. In the final episode, actually titled the series finale, we get only the odd, fleeting, sarcastic reference to a sitcom trope.
This is awkward. Your ex and your boyfriend together at the same party.
Or an occasional fun family moment.
Boys, handle the military. Mommy will be right back.
This scene also can't help but evoke The Incredibles, but near the end, we get a picturesque sitcom scene of Wanda and Vision tucking the boys in for bed, which here is transformed to take on a tragic, poignant emotion since we know this is for the last time.
Your mother and I, very proud of you both.
very proud.
And as Wanda and Vision treasure their last moments together before they must say goodbye to their fictional Westview home,
And there you are.
we get to see the positive side to Wanda's grief. The people we've lost or ever will lose are still a part of us.
But what is grief? If not love, persevering.
So, like any character in any innocuous family sitcom episode, in the end, she does learn a truly valuable lesson.
A family is forever. We could never truly leave each other even if we tried.
This is The Take on your favorite movies, shows, and culture.
Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us.
Please subscribe and never miss a take.